All right, so this is part 679. So, all right, this is for Senior Simon Cruz, period eighth. Okay, so this is for English non college prep. Someone in heaven. Sorry, I feel kind of sick right now. A bright morning day in San Diego, California, with big cities, beautiful sunrise, and all the people who are ready to go to work and go to school. It's only been 2 months since winter and break in Guadalupe had just woken up at 6 a.m. and her mom came in. Wake up, mija. It's time to go to school, said Mom. Guadalupe said, But Mom, I don't want to go. I want to sleep in. What did I say about complaining? It is your responsibility to go to school and get a better future. Now get up and take a shower, said Mom. Yes, Mom, she replied. She gets up for bed, goes to take a shower, and comes out and gets dressed. She looks at her calendar, sees that it's January 15th. She didn't want to go. She had no choice but how to go. It was getting late and she saw a big truck from outside from her window. She runs outside, takes a deep breath, goes to a neighbor's house and greets him nicely. Hi, I'm Guadalupe Gomez, and welcome to San Diego, said Guadalupe. Well, hello. I'm Mrs. and Mrs. Mars. I am Mrs. and Mr. Mars, and this is her son Maximiliano Mars. Respond to Maximiliano parents. Nervously shakes hands. Hi, I'm Guadalupe Gomez, and pleasure to meet you, said Guadalupe. Hi, very nice to meet you. Really pretty girl, respond Maximiliano. She blushed, and the boy blushed as well. She heard her mom yell from the car to hurry up before she would be late to school. Mija, let's go. I have to take you to school before you are late to class and I have to go to work. Yelling Guadalupe, Mom. Coming, Mom. Well, I have to go to school, and nice meeting you, Mrs. and Mrs. Mars. And welcome to San Diego, said Guadalupe. One question, what school do you go to? Because I want to sign my boy so he can finish his studies, said Mrs. and Mr. Mars. Oh, I go to Marioko High. I go to Mauricio High. It is an amazing school, and maybe I can show them around, but I really need to go. See you later. Well, thank you and hope to see you around then. Bye, said Maximiliano's parents. I got in the car and I imagined how cute he was. The quiff haircut, brown hair, light blue eyes, and while he was smiling, I could see his big, beautiful smile. And dimples popping out on his cheeks. He's a dream boy. 1 minute later. So, Mija, are you okay? Because I see a bright smile, said Guadalupe's mom, blushing. Nothing, plus I'm not smiling. What are you talking about? Replied Guadalupe. So, okay, like, are the neighbors nice? Responded Guadalupe's mom. Yes, they are super nice, said Guadalupe. 13 minutes later that she was in school. It's been only 2 weeks since the boy has just transferred to from Mauricio High, and Guadalupe saw him for her English class, and the principal came into the room and told Guadalupe to come toward him. To come toward him. It was kind of embarrassing, so I went talking towards the principal. Good morning, Mr. Green, said Guadalupe. Good morning, Guadalupe. Can you please show Mr. Maximiliano around to school where his classes are? Responded Mr. Green. Mr. Green is all. I have a Mr. Green in my school, my high school. He is an assistant principal. If you guys didn't know, or if you guys aren't different Indiana State, then you guys probably knows. I was excited to show him around that my face turned red and he was just staring at me awkwardly. After the bell rang, I went with him to show him around school. I missed some of my classes, but it was okay. The classes he had were the same as mine, and it was going to be a good year. 2 months later in March. It's been 2 months. He already has friends, and we became close and with each other. It looks like we had a connection. Some girls from different grades will come to him and try to flirt with him. He didn't pay any attention to them. But I would get a little jealous, but he will just smile at me and then he would notice. He will sit with me in mostly all my classes that we had together. It was like a dream. He will help me with my problems to solve or just make it fun. May. It was half of May 14th, and my parents and I got in a little fight. But told me to stay away from Maximilian because he was a bad influence and didn't want us to be together because I was failing some of my classes, so I shouldn't hang out with him no more. And we no, and we are and we're not going to school at party before summer. And my parents found out. I got mad. I went to my room. It was a middle night. My parents were asleep. I packed my stuff to go with Maximilian so we both can spend our life together. We went outside of my window so they won't be able to know that I left my house before I had to write a letter to know how I feel. Dear Mom and Dad, you know how much I love you guys, but sometimes you guys don't understand in us and I don't want to be with. And I don't care what you're going to say, but I want to be with him. And I don't want you guys to separate us and just ruin my life. And I'm not a little girl anymore. But I'm going to the Las Paz, Mexico. But I always love you guys, but you don't see it, and that is fine. But I have to go with Maximiliano to live with him. Sincerely, Guadalupe. I was falling apart with all her tears, and she couldn't help but to cry. I went to his home next door and threw a rock in Maximalo window, and he had woken up, and he noticed I was down there. So he opened the window door, and I told him to pack this up. So they come out of the window, so I told him a story about the plane that he accepted to come and be happy together and go to La Paz, Mexico. We called a Uber and took it to the airport, and about 25 minutes later, we got there and we got into the airplane and left California. 3 hour flight. I just woke up, and besides me and was him looking asleep, he was lying underneath his chest and being so warm and up, cuddling together. I tried to wake him up, but like 15 minutes later, we landed in Mexico. We got our things and went to a hotel. It was a beautiful day. It was so hot and windy. It was really nice, and we went to inside the hotel, and it had a beautiful. Oh, pardon me. It had like a beautiful artwork with paintings and a tiny mosicas inside of the building. We went upstairs, and there was a beautiful view by the outside from the window. 10 days later, we went to the beach this day, and I told Maximiliano that I love him and said it to back, and I felt happy. We had a lot of fun. It was amazing to see really cool places. It was wonderful, and listening to people talking Spanish was weird because I knew what they said and not reply back to Maximilian. Only a few Spanish, but okay. I was getting high, so Maximilian, and I went to outside the hotel and we entered. I saw my parents were in the room. They started yelling at me, why I escaped. And my brain started to fade away, and I couldn't see anything, so I fell down and didn't wake up. Guadalupe, are you okay? Cried Guadalupe's mom. My love, wake up, said Maximiliano. Someone called the ambulance and tell them to hurry up, said Guadalupe's mom. The ambulance came and took her and her family, and her parents didn't want him to go because of what happened. After 10 minutes, they got to the emergency room and they checked up on her and they told them that she was in a coma, that she had a rare disease and couldn't find out what it was or what if she was going to make it and had to take her home and back to California. Maximiliano, too. Nice story, Senior. Alright, so, um, don't worry, guys. The 2,500 videos will be up. Promise, guys. I'll do all the things that I need from you guys. Appreciate it. Alright, I am going to do. I'm going to go to copy of 19th century European transatlantic migration notes. What were the great European migration of the 19th and 20th centuries? How many people left Europe during the time of the great European migration? How many of those people came to the United States? What is a push factor? Why do they leave? List three examples of push factors. What is a pull factor? List 3 examples of pull factors. Origins. Where did the first wave of Europeans mostly come from? Why did the U.S. group move into the U.S.? Why did that group move to the U.S.? Where did the second wave of Europeans come from? Why did this group move to the U.S.? Transportation, revolution, and push factors. What made it easier for people to migrate to the United States? List the push factors for people to leave their homes in Europe. 4 of them. Pull factors. List of pull factors for people who come to the United States. 3. Emergency Quota Act, Immigration Act of 1917. When did it happen? Why did it happen? What did the act do? Who did the law apply to? Who did this act ban from coming to the United States? List 3. Nativism. Define it. Why was nativism on a rise during this time? Who was nativism focused in the 1840s and the 1850s? Who was nativism focused on in the early 90s? I don't think I did the piano one yet. The copy of Reconstruction notes. I blank. A created by blank, created to blank, all blank in the blank states. Blank really free slaves showed that blank was fought for blank. Created blank, took effect blank, line that separated the Union and for Confederacy blank, South are destroyed, blank ended blank. Land in the South was blank, needed to be blank, rebuild was called blank. Reconstruction plan, President blank wanted to blank the nation as quickly as possible. Any blank state with at least blank of its voters, making a pledge to be blank to the blank, could be remitted, aka proclamation of blank. South had to be the accepted of the blank on slavery. South of military discs, or districts, named the district and the states included to it. There are 5 of them. So the slaves are free. Blank amendment, made blank illegal. I'll show you the answer keys whenever I get done with this page right here. Not owned by me assignments. I have to do all of them today. Or if I can, I might get it done earlier. Then I can go to sleep, enjoy my day, basically. I'm gonna do, copy the Homestead Act notes. Describe the rainfall on the Great Plains. Nomadic. What do the nomadic people hunt? Why was the Great Plains called the Great American Desert? Geography of the Plains. The beginning of settlement. List 3 reasons why the Great Plains were not the Great American Desert. List 3 things. The Homestead Act. When was the Homestead Act passed? How much land was promised? How long did the individual have to live for it? Who is allowed on homestead? Describe another way to obtain land out of the West. How long until one could take a full ownership? Positive effects on the Homestead Act. 1, 2, and 3 interchangeable at parts. Farm machinery and fertilizer. Negative effects on the Homestead Act. List 3 things, all known as what did this act do, when was it passed, college land, Great Act. The Wheat Belt. What is the Wheat Belt? What was a sodbuster? How did they lose their homes and farms? What allowed families to bring their in larger harvests? Bonanza Farm, named the U.S. leading exporter in the 1880s. Culture of the Plains Indians. Describe how the Plains Indians lived. List the aspects that all Plains Indian tribes had in common. 3 things. Year of his silex, uprising a state where they from. Describe the agreement that the Dakota Silex lived under what? In unity. Describe what led of Dakota Silex's uprising. Plains Indians count the. Describe Fetterman's massacre year, who was involved, events, what led up to the massacre. Describe the Sand Creek massacre year, who was involved, events, what led up to the massacre. Describe the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Same thing. Describe the events of a Wounded Knee. Same thing. Assimilate. The Dolls Act. Year and what did it do? Allotments. Nothing much here. I don't know when I'm recording, but because I am getting used to this thing now, even though I had it for like when I just first started recently. Okay, so I'm gonna do um, all right. I'm gonna do copy of imperialism or not. Activity, the imperialism or not. Directions, read the following situations and decide whether the situation is clearly an act of imperialism, clearly not an act of imperialism, or describe what do you think it can be like called. After deciding if the situation is or not or is not imperialism, defend your decision as to why. If you need more room, you can add a piece of lined paper. June 1675 and July 1676, New England. Settlers for the Boston and Plymouth colonies were expanding west for the Atlantic coast, and encountering the Wampanoag people increased competition for resources, particularly land for planting, hunting, or fishing, caused friction between two groups. Changes in the regional economy, such as collapse in the fur trade, led many native people to support themselves by selling their land. But a continuing problem was the trampling of native cornfields by colonists' livestock after the dispute over the death of a Wampanoag trader of 1675. Hostilities broke out. King Philip's War begun. In the following year, over 600 colonists and 3,000 Indians were killed all over the Connecticut. Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and the colonists were eventually victorious. Hundreds of Indians were sold to slavery in the Caribbean. The Narragansett, Blaponiag, or Podunk, or Nipmuc were virtually eliminated, while the Mohicans were greatly weakened. Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island were now fully open to reopening colonization. You have to at least do 3 group members. Clearly enacting imperialism or clearly not. Explain why or defend. 2. April 11th, 1803, Louisiana Purchase. In 1602 or 1682, or Francis Sierra de la Salle claimed Louisiana territory for France without regard for the thousands of native peoples living in the area. In 1803, the United States negotiated the purchase of the Louisiana territory for France or for like 15 million. With a stroke of a pen, America doubled in size, making it one of the largest nations in the whole wide world. Free, July 27th, 1816, Florida. The first Seminole War erupted over nations by U.S. authorities to recapture runaway black slaves living among Seminole groups from Spanish Florida. The Fort of Georgia border where runaway slaves would seek protection, as well known as Negro Fort, as it contained hundreds of fugitive slaves and Seminole Indians. As many as 800 slaves settled for like in a surrounding area for 1815 to 1816. In July of 1816, the General Andrew Jackson instructed Major General Edmund P. James to destroy Negro Fort. and restores stolen Negroes and property to their rightful owners. On July 27th, 1816, General Gaines destroyed the fort and leading for the First Seminole War 1817 to 18 in 1821. Spain formally sold Florida to the United States for $5 million. The Second Seminole War, 1835 to 42, would begin after the Indian Removal Act of 1830, speared the rounding up and deportation of Seminole Indians in a trail of tears. After 1835, Florida was wide open to American settlement. Part 4. President James Monroe. This was from December 2nd, 1823, Washington, D.C. Okay, so he delivered what is known as the Monroe Doctrine. To Congress on December 2nd, 1823, essentially the United States was informing the powers of the Old World that American continents were no longer the open in European colonization, and that many effort to extend European political influence into the New World would be considered by the United States as dangerous to our peace and safety. The United States would not interfere in European wars or internal affairs, and expected of Europe to stay out of American affairs. Many people interpreted this as a statement against colonialism, yet practically, where the United States established that it could be an issue of ultimatums, which would be respected by world powers. April 25th, 1846. Texas. The U.S. Mexican War began on April 25th, 1846. After U.S. troops stationed in Texas by President James K. Polk encroached on Mexican territory and were fired by the Mexican forces, and ended nearly 2 years later with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo on February 2nd, 1848, which fixed the Rio Grande as the boundary of Texas. Is required Mexico to settle the territory that today includes the state of California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming for $15 million. June 15th, 1898, Hawaii, Part 6. When Queen Lolio-Kalani moved to establish a stronger monarchy in the 1890s, American businessman who owned sugar plantations under the leadership of Samuel Dole deposed her in 1893. The administration of President Benjamin Harrison encouraged the takeover and dispatched the sailors from the USS Boston to the islands to surround Royal Place. Dole sent a delegation to Washington in 1894 seeking annexation, but the new president, Grover Cleveland, opposed annexation, who tried to restore the Queen. Dole declared Hawaii an independent republic, speared by the nationalism aroused by the Spanish-American War. But the United States annexed Hawaii in 1898 at the urging President William McKinley. Hawaii was made a territory in the 19s. Dole became its first governor. Part 7, August 14th, 1990. Or, I'm sorry, what is that? 1900. China. After dividing up Africa among European powers at the Berlin Conference, 1894 and 5, European powers and America began to scramble for what was called spheres of interest. These spheres of interest involved holding leases for all railway and commercial privileges in various regions. The Russians got Port Arthur. The British got the new territories around Hong Kong. The Germans got a leasehold in Shantung, and the Americans got nothing. However, when thousands of people, or known as Boxers, traveled in the countryside, killing foreigners, and eventually copying, I should say, coalition or international forces came into the August 1914th, 1900, and crushed And in the rebellion, the United States played a significant role because it had participated in suppressing the Boxer Rebellion. The U.S. participated in the aftermath. Secretary of State John Hay called for expanded open door policy in all parts of China. Other powers agreed in the open door policy allowed foreign to access China's market until World War II closed it once again. Okay, so whenever I get used to being in a class, like whenever I'm in school, for example, like whenever you guys are in school, um, when I first day of school was like in August, you probably won't know the teacher very well. You usually get pretty shy at the moment, but when I get used to him, I mean, when I get used to that teacher, I'll be able to have some fun with them, if you know what I mean. Just like do some free stuff. Like I can sit on their chairs, not doing anything. You're sitting on your phone, or I can teach. It doesn't really matter to me. I can like mess with him a little bit. I'm not gonna like take his spot, but I'm gonna pretend that I'm like a substitute teacher. I'm gonna try to be annoying as Mr. Coon's class. He doesn't have a favorite student, so I gotta be honest with you. 1904, 1914, Panama. In 1878, Ferdinand de Lesseps, the French engineer who built the Suez Canal, began to dig a canal across the Isthmus of Panama, which was then part of Colombia. Tropical disease and engineering problems halted construction on a canal, but a French business, the New Panama Canal Company, still held the rights of the project. Roosevelt agreed to pay $40 million for the rights and began to negotiate with the Colombia for control of the land. He offered $10 million for a 50-mile strip across the isthmus. Colombia refused. We were dealing with the government for irresponsible bandits, Roosevelt stormed. I was prepared to at once copy the isthmus built anyhow and proceed to dig a canal, but I deemed it likely there would be a revolution in Panama soon. Teddy was right. The chief engineer of a new Panama Canal Company organized the local revolt. Roosevelt immediately sent a battleship, Nashville, and detachment of Marines in Panama to support a new government. The rebels gradually accepted Roosevelt's $10 million offer, and he gave to the United States complete control of a 10-mile wide canal zone. The Roosevelt ordered Army engineers to start digging. Despite level landslides, workers with the dynamite clumsy steam shovels cut their way across the continent. They built a railroad, freed sets of concrete locks, and a huge artificial lake. The U.S. retained control of the Panama Canal until 2000, when a treaty signed in 1977 by Jimmy Carter finally came into effect. This was the last part 8. Okay, so I think I'm gonna show you what I've done for imperialism. Alright, so like I said, if you guys have any questions, let me know. And I'm gonna try to help you the best I can, even though I don't have the answer keys. Okay, so alright, so you guys